Wednesday, 1:04 a.m. Wind rushed past Devon's head, the sound like water as it swept swiftly over her helmet, tugging at her loose-fitting sweater and open jacket, whipping her shoelaces from their neat bows to writhe wildly like drunken snakes. Her arms were wrapped tightly around the man steering the motorcycle, hands gripping the rectangular object in her palms so tightly it bit into skin. She didn't even know what to do with the dinosaur of technology. Well, she knew what to do with a cassette tape, obviously, but where were they supposed to find a cassette player, a working one, in 2020? eBay? Are there places around here that could make this digital? She asked her companion, yelling over the roar of the engine to be heard.
No talking,
he snapped, whipping the bike sharply to the right, crossing 3 lanes to speed around a corner. But...
No!
The road straightened underneath them, and he sped quicker down the pavement. She looked over her shoulder to see if the yellow vehicle was still tailing them, but the buildings surrounding them now blocked the side of the street they just escaped. Her companion tapped sharply on one of her hands. She had been reprimanded so often in this way in the course of this stupid game that she turned forward and clutched tighter at his waist with Pavlovian acuity. The bike was going so quickly that they were upon the light in no time, but her companion made a sharp left and suddenly all she could see was gray concrete and muted brick as he aimed them at a building. Her heart tripped into her throat and pulled a short yelp from her. She wanted to close her eyes, but fear kept them painfully wide. Suddenly, they were skidding to a stop in an alleyway with a swiftness that made her head shoot forward, the front of her helmet banging into the back of his jarringly as he abruptly killed the engine.
Not a word.
She heard him speak into the sudden silence, broken only by the slight ringing in her ears, his hand gripping the forearm still firmly wrapped around him. Several agonizing seconds passed, with her pulse tapping out quick time in her neck and her breaths echoing in the helmet around her. After long seconds of the discordant sounds ricocheting between the helmet shield and her ears, a new sound overtook it. The sound of an engine. The two of them turned and watched as the little yellow car sped past the opening of their alleyway without even tapping the brakes. They waited quietly for even more seconds, hearing the wheels screech as though they took the corner at the light too quickly. The sound slowly trailed off. She pushed out a relieved breath, her arms loosening around her partner's waist, her head dropping against his back. Lord, that was terrifying. The man jerked away, popping the kickstand into place and sliding off the bike. He spun to face her, whipping off his own helmet to glare down at her. She began.
Are you stupid?
He demanded over her. Hold on.
You've got to be stupid.
He continued over her.
Because there is no other explanation as to why you would—
Hold on, she snapped, getting off the bike as well. Don't act like I did something wrong.
Oh, you want to pretend you did something right?
The task was to retrieve the item. I retrieved the item.
The task is to retrieve the package and get to the checkpoint.
Okay, I took care of part 1 and you're in charge of part 2. He grabbed his head and gave a low shout of frustration.
You took it in full view of everyone.
That's how you retrieve a thing!
That's how you paint a target on your back.
He shouted, stepping into her space.
Now every other maniac in this tournament knows we have it and will be gunning for us. So how many people do you think are waiting at the end to retrieve this thing from us, huh?
Devon was silent, glaring at him but unable to form a rebuttal. She hadn't thought of that.
Oh, I bet you hadn't thought of that, huh? Didn't think the whole task through, huh? Just skipped on through and snatched it. No plan, no strategy.
Still, she had no response to that, and he made another sound of frustration and kicking at the ground.
How did I get stuck with this kid?
That comment soured her mood and opened her mouth. You're having a tantrum, but I'm the child? He spun on her and was in her face again.
You think this is a game?
Yes, because it is a game, she snapped back.
No, just because you think it is doesn't mean the rest of us do. And other players aren't afraid to take a little girl out to get the prize.
Then just do it on your own if I'm such a hassle to work with.
Jeez, how did I even get selected for... Once lots are drawn and partners are chosen, that's it. Win or lose, I'm stuck with you.
Well, you can keep complaining and blaming me, and we'll lose your precious prize, or you can suck it up and we can figure out a plan together.
We had a plan, and you ignored it. Rushing in, taking the thing without thinking.
We did not have a plan.
I told you to stay still.
That's not a plan, that's an order.
The plan was to follow my word.
Screw that plan! She stepped up to him. You're not my boss. We're equals in this, and if you want to have a plan, we need to talk it out and agree on it. That's what makes it a plan. As he stared down at her, with rage in his gaze, she wished for the umpteenth time this night that she had never responded to that stupid Craigslisting. What had she been thinking? No, she knows what she'd been thinking. She'd been bored, a state that rarely ever led to bright decisions. 23 hours earlier. Tuesday, 2:41 a.m. Devin had never been to a casino before. It was different from what she imagined. Or, rather, it was different from what she had seen in movies or on TV. It was clean, but somehow still felt gritty. And it wasn't so much packed with people as it was with smoke, the air nearly opaque with pearly ropes of it curling in the air like worms. She was supposed to meet him at a restaurant somewhere in the building. She hadn't even known casinos could have restaurants in them. How anyone could eat anything in this place when the very air tasted like cancer was beyond her, but she hadn't gotten to choose the place, only the meeting. This was probably a bad idea. No, this was definitely a bad idea. Her common sense railed at her that meeting a stranger from the internet in person was a stupid idea, especially through Craigslist, but after their email exchange, she couldn't not see what this was all about. She tried to assure herself with the fact that he had chosen a very public place to meet, and she had her location on and shared with her two best friends. Nothing would happen, but if it did, she was sure someone would be able to find her. She wandered her way through the click-clang slam of slot machines and the shick-shick shuffle of cards in the hands of dealers, amazed that she could hear anything over the clashing of different musics being pumped out from hidden-away speakers and the theme machines that she passed. Her eyes stung from the stink of smoke, but flickered left and right, trying to keep up with the colorful world as it slipped by her. She wanted to stop, but knew there wasn't time. She came across the restaurant after a few minutes of walking and strolled up to the hostess desk. "How many in your party?" the woman at the stand asked her. "I'm meeting someone. Should be under the name Nadler?" The woman looked at the list in front of her. "Yes, the other half of your party is already seated. I'll take you over." She followed the woman into the dining room. The place was pretty full considering it was nearing 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, but it was immediately obvious which table they were headed for. Straight ahead of them, a man sat alone, a plate of pancakes in front of him being slowly demolished by the steady movement of his fork from plate to mouth. His hair was cut very short to his head, so short she couldn't tell if it was brown or blonde. His nose was short but pointed, wide mouth, ears tall but plastered close to the sides of his head. His eyes were focused on his plate, so she couldn't be sure what color they were, but she guessed dark. "Here you are," the hostess said, stopping beside him at the table. The man did not look up from his intent destruction of the pancake stack. "Your waiter will be along soon." And then the hostess was gone, and Devin was left standing awkwardly at the side of the table, being ignored by the stranger. Hi?" she tried, failing a casual tone by a mile. "You're Nadler?" The man said nothing, instead waving his butter knife at the open seat across from him while tucking a triangle of syruped bread into his mouth. She sat but didn't say anything. He didn't either. After a minute, a waiter appeared at the table and took her drink order, promising to return for her food. The man still had not looked up. She watched with a bit of horror as the plate before him was cleared in short order. Finally, he set his fork down, leaned back in his chair, and picked up a cloth napkin to wipe away the stickiness on his mouth. She sat forward, beginning to ask again if the man was Nadler.
"I'll have another."
The man said suddenly, without looking away from the hands he was still busy wiping up.
"No eggs, no bacon, no drink. Just 5 cakes."
"All right," came a voice from over her shoulder as she turned to see the waiter. "Anything for you, miss?" No, thank you." The waiter smiled, placing the already ordered glass of water in front of her, and left them alone again. She turned back around and addressed the man. "Why are you—"
"What exactly is so unsatisfying about your life?"
he said over her, eyes flickering upward to finally meet hers.